On the surface, Margarita Arthur wandered about moodily. Ford had thoughtfully left him his copy of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to while away the time with. He pushed a few buttons at random. The Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy is a very unevenly edited book, and it contains many passages that simply seemed to its editors like a good idea at the time. One Arthur now came across supposedly relates the experience of one Vidvogangi, a quiet young student at University of Maximilian who pursued a brilliant academic career studying ancient philosophy, transforming ethics, and the wave's harmonic theory of a historical perception. And then, after a night of drinking pan-galactic gargle blasters with Vukmong Beetlebrox, became increasingly obsessed with the problem of what had happened to the Brios had bought over the past few years. There followed a long period of painstaking research during which he visited at the major centers of Brio lost through the galaxy and eventually came up with quite a quantic little theory which caught the public's imagination of the time. Somewhere in cosmos, he said, along with the planets inhabited by humanoids, reptilioids, fishoids, walking pteroids, and super-intelligent shades of color blue. There was also a planet entirely given over the Bureau's life forms, and it was this planet that unattended bros would make their way, slipping away quietly through wormholes in space to a world where they knew that they could enjoy uniquely Briot's lifestyle, responding to a highly Briot-oriented stimuli, and generally leading to the Bureau equivalent of the good life. As the theories go, that this was all very fine and pleasant until Vidvagukin suddenly claimed to have found this planet and to have worked there for a while, driving limousines for a family of cheap green retractables. Whereupon he was taken away, locked up, wrote a book, and was finally sent to a tax exile, which is the usually fate reserved for those who determined to make a fool of themselves in public. When one day an exhibition was sent to the spatial coordinates of Vuvakin, had claimed for this planet that they discovered only a small asteroid inhabited by a solitary old man, who claimed repeatedly that nothing was true, though he was later discovered to be lying. There, however, remained the question of both the mysterious 60,000 Australian dollars paid yearly to this Brentivosigan bank account, and of course Zapoid Bleeperbox, highly profitable the second-hand Brio business. Arthur, read this. Put the book down. The robot still sat there, completely inert. Arthur got up, walked to the top of the crater. He walked around the crater. He watched two suns set magnificently over the Magrathea. He went back down into the crater. He woke up the robot because even a manically depressed robot is better to talk to than nobody. Night falling, he said, "Look, robot, the stars are coming out. From the heart of the dark nebula, it is possible to see very few stars, and only very faintly, but they were there to be seen." The robot obediently looked at them, then looked back. "I know," he said. "Wrenched, isn't it? But the sunset! I never seen anything like it in my wildest dreams. The two suns? It's like mountains of fire boiling into space." "I've seen it," said the Marvin. "It's rubbish. We only have ever had the one sun at home," preserved Arthur. "I came to the planet called Earth, you know." "I know," said Marvin. "You keep going about it. It sounds awful." "Oh, no. It was a beautiful place." "Did it have oceans? Oh, yes, and Arthur said in a sigh. A great, wild, rolling blue ocean. I can't bear oceans, said Marvin. Tell me, inquired Arthur, do you get on well with the other robots? Hate them, Marvin said. Where are you going? Arthur couldn't bear any more. He had got up again. I think I'll just take another walk, he said. Don't blame you, said Marvin, and counted 597,000 million sheep before falling asleep again a second later. Arthur slapped his arm about himself to try to get to his circulation a little more enthusiastically about its job. He tugged back in the wall of the crater because the atmosphere was so thin, and because there was no moon, nightfall was very rapid, and it was by now very dark. Because of this, Arthur particularly walked into the old man before he noticed him. He was standing with his back to Arthur, watching the very last glimmers of light sink into blackness behind the horizon. He was tallish, elderly, and dressed in a single long grey robe, and when he turned his face was thin and distinguished, careworn but not unkind, the sort of face you would happily bank with. But he didn't turn yet, not even to react to Arthur's yelp of surprise. Eventually, the last rays of sun had vanished completely, and he turned. His face was still illuminated from somewhere, and when Arthur looked for the source of the light, he saw that a very few yards away stood a very small craft of some kind. A small hovercraft, Arthur guessed. It shed a dim pool of light around it. The man looked at Arthur sadly, it seemed. You chose the cold night to visit a dead planet, he said. Who are you? Slammed Arthur. The man looked away, and again a kind of sadness seemed to show on his face. My name is not important. He seemed to have something on his mind. Conversation was clearly something that he felt, but he didn't have to rush it. Arthur felt awkward. You startled me, he said lamely. The man looked round to him again and slightly raised his eyebrows. He said. I said you startled me. Well, don't be alarmed. I will not harm you. Arthur frowned at him. You shot at us. There were missiles, he said. A man chuckled slightly. An automatic system, he said, and gave a small sigh. Accidents, ancient computers, ranged in the bowels of the planet, ticked away the dark vanilla, and the ages hung heavy on their dusty databanks. I think they take the occasional hot shot to receive the monetary. He looked gravely at Arthur and said, I'm a great fan of science, you know. Oh? Really? Said Arthur, who was beginning to find the man curious, kindly manner disconcerting. Oh, yes, the old man said, simply stopped and talking again. Ah, Arthur, said Arthur. He had an odd feeling of being like a man in the act of adultery who is surprised when the woman's husband wandered into the room, changed his trousers, and passes a few idle remarks about the weather and leaves again. You seem a little ill, said the old man with a polite concern. No, well, yes, actually, you see, we weren't really expecting to find anybody about, in fact. I sort of gathered that you're all dead or something. Dead, the old man said. Good gracious, no, we have but slept. Slept, said Arthur incredulously. Yes, I thought the economic recessions, you see, said the old man, apparently unconcerned about whether Arthur understood a word he was talking about or not. Economy recession? Well, you see, 5 million years ago, the galactic economic collapsed, and seeing that custom-made planets are something of a luxury commodity, you see. He paused and looked at Arthur. You know, we built this planet, you know? He asked solemnly. Well, yes, Arthur said. I'd sort of gathered. Fascinatingly trade, said the old man. and a wistful look came into his eyes. Doing that coastline, as always my favorite, used to have endless fun doing a little bits and fjord. So anyways, he said, trying to find his thread again, the recession came and decided it would save us a lot of bother if we just slept through it. So we programmed the computers to revive us when it was all over. The man sniffled very slightly. Jan continued. The computers were indexed linked to the galactic stock market prices, you see, so that when we'll be arrived when everybody else will have rebuilt the economy enough to afford our rather expensive services. Arthur, a regular Guardian reader, was deeply shocked about this. That's a pretty unpleasant way to behave, isn't it? Is it? Asked the old man mildly. I'm sorry, I'm a bit out of touch. He pointed down at the crater. Is that your robot of yours? He said. No, it came with a thin metallic voice from a crater. It's mine. If you call it a robot, muttered Arthur, it's more sort of a electronic sulking machine. Bring it, said the old man. Arthur had quietly been surprised to hear that a note of a decision suddenly present in the old man's voice. He called to the Marvin, who crawled up to the slope, making a big show being lame, which he wasn't. On second thought, said the old man, leave it here. You must come with me. Great things are at foot. He turned towards the craft, which, though have apparent signal have been giving, now drifted quietly towards them through the dark. Arthur looked down at Marvin. Made the equally big slow of turning round, laboriously trucking off down into the crater again, muttering sour nothings to himself. Come, said the old man. Now come, or you'll be late. Late, Arthur said. For what? What's your name, human? Dent. Arthur Dent, said Arthur. Late, as in the late Dent from Arthur Dent? Said the old man sturdily. It's sort of a treat, you see. Arthur wishfully came into his tired eyes. I've never been very good at myself, but I've been told they can be very effective. Arthur blinked at him. An extraordinary person, he murmured out to himself. I beg your pardon, said the old man. Oh, nothing. I'm sorry. Arthur, in embarrassment. All right. Where do we go? In my air car, said the old man, monitoring Arthur to get into the craft, which had settled silently next to him. We're going to deep into the bowels of the planet, where even now our race begins revived for the fifth million-year slumber. Marjorie awakens. Arthur shivered involuntarily. He seated himself next to the old man. The strangeness of it, the silent bobbing movements of the craft as it soared into the night, quite unsettled him. He looked at the old man, his face illuminated by all the dull glow of the tiny lights of instruments panel. Excuse me, he said to him. What is your name, by the way? My name? Said the old man. The same distant sadness from onto his face again. He paused. My name, he said, is Stolty Bartfast. Arthur practically choked. I beg your pardon, he sluttered. Slatty Bartfast, repeatedly the old man quietly. Salty Bartfast, the old man looked at him. I said it wasn't important, he said. The air car sailed through the night.
I hope you're enjoying this fantastical tale. The next chapter of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy will be coming out soon.